week 9. We're only 5 minutes late today. I feel like we've accomplished something special. So, welcome to the Crazy Writer Chicks live event. This week we are talking about how to answer those questions. Basically, every question that we don't want to answer. That's no one's business. We're going to talk about all those. So my name is Nikki Rome. I am a contemporary romance author. I've got Rebecca White with me and Winter Navi, who are two of my other favorite writer chicks that are out here in this crazy world of people. And that's what we're here to do. We're going to talk about all the crazy stuff tonight. So, ladies, where should we start?
Man. I was thinking it might be fun to start in kind of chronological order. For example, and less threatening, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, that's not, I mean, that's not a mean question or anything. But, do you know what I'm saying?
Not mean,
like, it's
but
a habit
can
that
be stressful.
Yeah, and that's, I don't think that people should stop asking kids that, but maybe less often.
Maybe less.
Are they
Do you know what your kid wants to be when he grows up? Because I'll be honest with you, I don't know.
Currently, mine wants to be a farmer.
That's a good job.
Despite the fact that he doesn't like to work outside. He thinks he gets to drive tractors all day.
I mean,
he can hire people more to it than that. To do all the other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Mom, when I get rich, I'm going to have 3 trucks. Oh, no, 3 trucks is a lot. But I'll have 2 trucks because I'm going to be a farmer and I need to have at least 2 trucks. I
mean, that's where it starts, doesn't it? Right? Somebody asks you a question, you answer it. Like you're a kid. What do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to be a farmer. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a dancer. Do you know what my parents told me? That doesn't pay the bills.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I shouldn't be what I want to be when I grow up. And then when I start thinking of every other answer I've given over the years, and I'm like, is this the right answer or is this the wrong answer?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, even that, I mean, in talking about like how to respond to them or how to ask, I mean, it's not wrong to ask someone what they have planned, what do they want to do. But yeah, that kind of judgmental, if you don't really want to know, then why are you asking, right? Like, what do you want to do? No, you can't do that. Like,
yeah, no, that doesn't make any sense. But I think that's the tricky part because some people might feel like you do, where it's like, well, if you're curious, ask. And I'm one of those people like, don't ask me something unless you want to answer it yourself. But I get a little more defensive around some of the questions because some of them are just nobody else's business.
mm-hmm.
But then you're faced with the question, so then how do you get, you know?
Well, I think it goes back to starting with that early question. Like when you're a kid, half the time you don't know, but you feel like you have to pull something out of the air and answer. And instead of saying, I don't know, because at that age, either normally it's an adult who's asking you and you feel obligated to answer. That's when we learn that when a question is asked, we have to find a response. And I think that's how we got to this question.
Right. Well, that's, I mean, there's so many things with kids that I'm learning now. Oh, I shouldn't do that. And probably would have been good if no one had done that to me, you know, like you said, like asking those questions, pressuring an answer. Oh, hug your aunt, or, you know, things like that. No one had to pressure me to hug my aunt, but things like that, that looking back, I'm like, oh, that probably wasn't really great. But you just don't think about it.
Yeah.
And especially as kids become teens, it becomes a lot more pressure. And my husband, Jonathan, used to always say, like, to teens after someone would ask them that. He'd say, "Don't worry about it. You have time. You know, don't get stressed out about it. It's not urgent." I feel like we lost Nikki. We
We
did.
did.
We totally lost her. She was frozen for a while.
She'll be back. There she
There she
is.
is.
Hey, Nick. You left and came back, and you
I'm
froze
here
again.
now.
There you are.
I was losing my connection.
Keep getting all these
I think a little
sounds.
bit again.
Sorry, that was me trying to tell you that I was losing my connection, but to keep talking. So where are we at?
Oh, I don't remember.
You were
Just the
talking about
pressure. The pressure involved in asking, especially once they get to be teens, well, what do you want to do? And Jonathan, my husband, would say, you don't really need to know until your second or third year of college, because you can just do prerequisites for the first couple of years and explore and see, what do you really want? Kat, stop. Now she's shoving my computer screen with her, doing that chin thing. Go. Sorry.
the cat wants to be seen.
She really does. She's tapping my hands.
Well, I would say when I went to college, like I spent 2 years, and I decided at the end that, or somewhere in the middle, because I wanted to try a little bit of everything. I just made my major general education. I still didn't know. Like I was always like interested in something new, and that's the way it's been my whole life. Like I keep switching it up because sometimes you have to test things before deciding where you want to be. And here I am in a new career.
Isn't a lot of that personality too, and I think that's something that we need to consider is some people are not ever gonna, like, you might not ever settle into something that you just want to do for the next 40 years because you like to explore and do different things. And there can be some judgment with that from people. And who knows, maybe when I was younger, I might have felt the same way. Like, don't people have a passion? Don't they want to do something? And now I'm like, oh yeah, that's dumb. Like, we live pretty long, right? I mean, there's no reason to do the same thing for 60 years unless you just really want to.
No, but I think
again,
that's a little better. I feel like I look really crazy tonight. But I think that's some of like the previous generation that kind of comes down on you, because for most of my life, like when I was younger, the town that I was in, I mean, I grew up in Rochester, New York, right? So that's where Xerox and Kodak and all those major companies were, and you got a career out of college and you stayed there your entire life. And so when I was approaching college age and such, like that's what was expected of me. What do you want to do for the rest of your life? And I never knew the answer to that question, which is probably why I never finished college. But then my husband went to school for like, I don't know, 12 years to get a 4-year degree that he doesn't even use. So like, right? And then we ended up paying for nursing school for him to go back in his late 30s because that's when he figured out what he wanted to do for the rest of his life. And so I think that's where some of that stress comes from. It's depending on the generations before you and what their expectations are of you. Because when you're young, you don't even know how to be yourself yet, let alone how to answer some of these questions. You've no idea who you are. I have no idea who I am now.
I wonder though if part of that is because it's less structured in our society, especially school-wise. Everything is general. Because when I lived in Italy, their schooling system is so different. Like you go through elementary school and then junior high, and your high school is like specific. Like
college,
in junior high,
really.
it's your college, and you have to decide which type of school you want to go to. Is it an art school? Is it an engineer school? Is it this school? So they choose at a young age which direction they want to go. But I feel like maybe they have chances before that to really dig into what they really want, as opposed to waiting till, late. I don't know.
Well, I think there's schools like that now that do some of that stuff, especially some charter schools and things. I have a nephew in Miami, and I remember I was shocked because he was taking like all these political science classes and speech and all this stuff, but he was in a like law and criminal program in his high school. So the classes, all of his electives were aligned with that. And then after about a half a year, he realized he hated it. His father was a police officer, which is why he wanted to like go down that route, thinking he would do that or become an attorney, and then got into it, was like not interested in this at all, and changed because it gave more time to kind of trial and error stuff when you're doing that thing in high school versus in college anyway. So I thought it was a really cool opportunity for him.
Yeah, that's awesome to be able to do that early.
But it's not common.
Well, some schools have started introducing robotics too, which has been good for kids because then they decide if they're interested in engineer or building or construction or computers, so it's something that's a little more tangible.
My
But
daughter is
again,
currently obsessed with her second grade teacher's robots that showed up in the classroom last week. She's got like 6 or 7 different robots that they play with and they get to like experiment with. And she comes home every day telling me what the robot's doing. And I ever in a million years think that my daughter would be interested in that? Absolutely not. But she's astonished, But that, you bring up a good point. It's the introduction of all those additional STEM programs and things like that that expose children to things sooner rather than later.
Right, because how can you know if you're interested if you're not exposed to it?
You don't. You're just basically reading a catalog like I did in college, and I'm like, oh, that sounds like a fun degree. Let's do that one. See how it does.
And that's probably why so many people end up
Trooper.
You want to see your face. There you go. So many people end up wanting to be like music and writing and art because those are things that they actually experience.
Right.
So they're like, oh, that's what I'm interested in. But who knows what they might have been interested in had they had the chance. Zoology or, like you said, architecture or something like that. It's just not something they ever thought of.
No. Which kind of leads to that next set of questions, right? So you're in college and you're getting ready to leave school and everybody wants to know what, like, did you get a job yet? Where are you going to work? What are you going to do in your career? And you've got a lot of college kids. Like I've got a niece right now who's in her senior year of college and should be heading to med school and is terrified to tell everybody that she has no desire to go to med school now.
I have a friend who did that.
I don't know what to do with this degree that I am like working towards. She's got a degree in like bioscience, something or other. I don't know, no idea. But I'm like, okay, what else could you do with that degree if you don't go into medical? And she's like, well, And so now she's already starting to face all those questions from friends and family and everything else. Like, okay, what's next? What's next? What are you doing next?
And it's like you feel obligated from a choice you made 4 years ago. You know what I mean? You're obligated instead of saying, okay, I've learned from this and now I've learned that it's not right for me. But, I know someone who did that. They loved biology in high school and went to college and loved it until they kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper. It's just like, I know too much now. I don't want to know more. And I don't want to live my life in this world any longer.
I had a client. I've worked in banking my whole career. I had a business client who literally told me numerous times that she was an attorney only long enough to pay off her student loans because she hated being an attorney. She's like, I will do this just until I pay off my debt, and then I will never, ever touch another law book again. How sad is that?
Yeah. But at least she didn't rack up like 12 years of college.
Yeah, but the amount of student loan debt for a law degree is, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I was like, girl.
Cat. She's knocking over my stuff. Stop it. Now she's attacking me.
Maybe she wants you to ask her questions.
What do you want to be when you grow up, Furball? She's seriously trying to attack me. I don't even have my hands over there.
So for
Oh,
those of
goodness.
you who are just now entering into our broadcast, Becca's cat is hiding behind her computer and waiting for her to reach out so she can attack her.
She knocked over my phone, which is what I'm watching Facebook with.
Nice.
And now my dog is growling at me to let him outside. He doesn't need to go outside. He will survive. So another early question, aside from, at the same time as college often is, when are you going to date? This is earlier than college usually. When are you going to date? Who are you going to date? What kind of people do you date? Why aren't you dating? That's a big one. Why aren't you dating? If you're not dating. Or why are you dating him?
Mm-hmm. Or her.
Depending.
Who you're talking to.
Right.
And we're
Oh no. Nikki.
What'd you say, Nikki?
hearing again, aren't I?
You're back.
You're back.
Am I?
Yeah, what'd
I
you
didn't
say?
even go that really. I didn't even go that far. I said,
You
or
just-
the where do you see this going kind of conversation. So like nobody's really going to tell you they don't like your partner, but they're going to be like, but where's this really going? Maybe it's
when
just
you're
going
both
for a good time.
together and you haven't even asked each other.
Right.
You're like,
Maybe you
Yeah.
don't know yet.
this is awkward.
And then all the assumptions that come along with it, right? Well, if you've been dating for however many years and you're not married, or he didn't ask or she didn't ask, then, are you really serious?
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to happen? Which leads
People
to the
used
when are
to-
you getting married questions.
People used to assume that I was a lesbian because I wasn't dating anybody. Like for years, I just didn't date anybody. And
That's nice.
someone actually told me to my face once, like, because someone was trying to convince him to ask me out. I think I only caught the end of the conversation, and he was like, no, because she's a lesbian. I was like, well, actually, I'm not. Like, just because I work here doesn't mean I'm a lesbian. But no, I don't want to date you anyway.
So thanks, but no thanks.
Thanks for taking the time
But
to
it's
get to
things-
know me.
Right, exactly. But things like that, a lot of questions come out of assumptions. Like you're saying, well, you've been this long or with someone or this long without someone or whatever, And it can be hurtful. I don't think it really hurt me that they thought that. I didn't really care. But it could be, any of that could be. But when you're the one
Well, 'cause you
asking
don't
it,
know
you don't think of
somebody's
it.
history and you don't know where somebody's coming from. And I think that's what the problem is. Like if you're in a relationship and maybe you've got some kind of trauma in the past, or you came out of a relationship previously that was awful, but no one knew the whole story, it's going to take you a lot longer to trust and all that and feel confident in your relationship anyway to move forward in the right direction, right? And I think that's where the insensitivity piece kicks in for a lot of people. For me, it wasn't who you're dating, when you're dating, and all that. For me, it all fell into place when it was like the kids' question started, because that's a big one. And it was a real hot topic for me. And that's where I struggled with everything. I mean, because we had been married for years and struggled with infertility and had more trauma and drama from that than you could possibly imagine. And yet every time you turn around, somebody wants to know where the babies are. And you're like, do you want the whole, okay, sit down. You want me to tell you the whole story? Because I'll tell you the whole story and then you'll never ask me again.
And hopefully no one else either.
Right. Like, can I teach you why you don't want to ask this question? But I've been introduced, we were introduced to multiple family members at a family event as the couple that had the dogs. This is my son and daughter, the ones that have the dogs. We're the ones that didn't have the kids or anything like that, because you don't share your full experience with anybody. And so that's where sometimes I think I get more defensive with some of those questions and I don't ask other people, because I'm like, dude, it's none of your business. It's none of your business. It's go ahead, be curious, but ask politely and don't make assumptions. And I think that's when you get into like the long-term relationship, the marriage questions, the children questions, the when are you moving on after a divorce questions. That is literally the most insensitive things that I hear people say. I have multiple friends who've been through a divorce, and the first thing everybody does is like, okay, where do you want to go out? Let's go hook you up with somebody else. And it's like, wait a minute, dude, she's been married to this guy
Yeah.
for years. Like, if she's ready, good. She'll share it with you that she's ready, or him. But I think a
But
lot of
it's
times
none
we
of
like
your
to put that stuff
business.
off on
Yeah.
other people.
But until you've experienced it or been with someone who's experienced it closely, you just don't think about it. I didn't. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think I ever would have thought to ask someone if they're planning on when they're going to have kids. Like that just wouldn't have crossed my mind anyway. But until I knew people who
Mhm.
struggled
Struggled.
with that and realized the pain that that could cause if you ask the wrong person that, for example, it wouldn't occur to me. And there's probably things now that I just wouldn't think, oh, that could really hurt someone just because I haven't thought of it. So we've had a discussion about this, something similar to this before, didn't we? I can't remember what the title of it was. It was one of our earlier ones, but like thinking about things from their perspective.
Yeah.
Common
Like
sense.
Common
impact,
sense.
not
Yeah, like
intent.
if you've been in that if you've been in that situation, it's common sense not to ask someone, "Oh, when are you planning on baby?" In fact, years ago, early in our marriage, we never intended to have kids. Like that was when we got married, we had decided we didn't want kids. And then we were going to see a childhood friend after years of not seeing her, and I knew that they struggle with fertility because not that it was my business, but somehow I knew. And I said to my husband, just don't bring up anything about kids because I know that's a sensitive, that's a thing for them. And he was like, what about me makes you think I would ever think to ask somebody that question? And I was like, point
You just
taken,
never
but
know.
like just in case, because he's not especially sensitive. So I just, thought, and tell you like the second sentence out of my friend's mouth was, so what about kids? And I was like, she brought it up. I guess it's okay,
I guess we're okay.
Right. But still, like, I was really surprised knowing their situation that she brought it up. But I don't know. I guess when you're really good friends with someone too, not that we had seen each other in years, but that could be part of it too. I mean, if you really know someone, you can ask. There are things you can ask when you really know someone and you know how to ask them.
Well, that's true. And some people want the questions because they want the door open because they want to share their story and they don't feel comfortable to otherwise. So I think that's the difference between getting asked those questions by close friends or close family versus non-close friends and non-close family. Because by default, you face things like the situation we did with my mother-in-law at the party, and that was the last thing I ever would have thought she'd be wandering us around introducing us as the kids with the dogs. But she did, and she didn't think anything was wrong with it. I mean, to her, that was just how she differentiated us from their other children. And so you have to deal with a certain amount of that from people that are close to you anyway. So being, I think, more sensitive with the questions from people that you don't know, or when you're asking questions of people you don't know, I think is kind of key. Sorry, Winter, I think I cut you off.
No, that's cool. No, so there's also being, in a grocery store, and if you're potentially overweight and someone saying, "When are you due?" Just that assumption of, I just never assume anymore because that happened to a friend, and she was
On my
like,
list.
"Well, I'm not," but
That happened to me.
Oh,
I was
you
on a
leave the store
client
and you feel
call and I was
horrible.
so shook. I couldn't make it through the whole thing. I must have made such a fool out of myself in that appointment. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. I was devastated. I was in my early 20s. But it's funny that you bring this up because this just happened. And I know my sister and her friend are watching this. They don't even know I do this, so I can share this. But my sister was at a wedding and one of her best friends was the maid of honor and the mother that was expecting. And she was devastated. and literally had like run off and locked herself in a room crying hysterically while the other girls tried to calm her down and keep it from the bride what her mother had just said to one of her best friends. And it's like, in one side of it, I'm like, pull your shit together. This is your friend's wedding. Deal with your crap later. And the other side of it, I'm like, hell, like, I could have been right there.
She's suddenly feeling fat in a dress in front of a crowd full of people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're like, oh, I thought I looked beautiful today. I just walked out, and all of a sudden, someone's like, oh, you look pregnant, and you're not. You're like, crud, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that goes on the list of things just to never say.
Never assume. Never assume someone might be pregnant. They can look at
all of it.
But they could also have an ulcer in their stomach.
Exactly.
I have a very good friend who was commenting on my weight, saying like, girl, are you pregnant? And she was kind of joking, but also like making a point that you're gaining weight, you know? And because she's a good friend, like, I was like, don't be mean, you know, like, you know, like, no, I'm just bloated. I've been in the car for 2 days to come visit you. Like, I've been eating fast food and crap for 2 days. Like,
well, you know what? Like, that's a thing, like, because our topic is questions that people should not be asking, but there's also statements that people should not make. And when I lived in Italy, they are very, very free with sharing their opinions. And I promise you, I lost a lot of weight when I lived in Italy, and I was very proud of myself. And I lived on the 3rd floor, and the elevator was almost always broken. And we had to walk to the grocery store. So I had to walk up and down stairs every day, anytime I wanted to leave. And I was walking down the stairs, eating a banana, and the woman said, maybe you shouldn't be eating that. I was like,
it's a banana.
It's a banana. That's what I said. No, actually, she didn't even say that. She said, you've had enough, haven't you? And that's what they do. Everyone treats you like your family when it comes to anything they want to say out there.
Well, being brought up in an Italian family, I can tell you there have been multiple meals where people have turned to me and others going, you've had enough, haven't you? Are you going to have that dessert?
Like, we haven't even started yet.
Very judgmental group of people when it comes to the way people look. It's awful. Awful.
Even ones who are bigger than you will tell you that you've had enough. Apparently there's an age limit. Like, you can't be this size until you get to here. I've lived my life. You still need to be here.
You're not old enough for that yet. You haven't had enough kids for that yet.
You're not married yet. That's what it is. You haven't got married yet.
Not married yet. Not married yet. Yeah. Once you're married, you can do whatever you want. It doesn't matter anymore. At least in most of my family's eyes.
My mom goes beyond the questions. She doesn't even ask the questions. She goes out and gives my number away to men. And then when I finally told her that I would no longer answer numbers I didn't know, she started getting their pictures and taking their numbers and giving them to me.
Oh my goodness.
And like Becca, my mom accused me of being a lesbian for a year because I came home from Italy, and in Italy, when you shop in the markets, they give you free gifts when you buy like a certain amount. And so they gave me this cute little bracelet, and it was free. I'm like, yes, but it was a rainbow bracelet. So I came home with it from Italy, and from my rainbow bracelet, I was a lesbian for a year because I don't date just nonchalantly. So like, she was like, you can tell me. Like, I was like, Mom.
Then she gets offended that you wouldn't.
Yes.
Why?
She really did.
Tell me.
Oh dear.
Well,
it happens.
I mean, it's a lot of that jumping to judgment, jumping to conclusions about other people when you don't know who they are. I mean, that's what makes sometimes it's so difficult for people to just be themselves, is because we've been asked the questions or we've heard the statements or we've felt the judgment, and it's like, you know what, I'm not going to show me to anyone anymore. I'm just not.
And then I
And
don't
it
know how
changes
not
who
to
you are at the
answer.
core.
I feel
I
obligated.
know. I always open my
Like,
mouth too.
I can't think fast enough to come up with something that's not offensive. I don't know.
I wish I
need to
could think
find a clip
faster
for
to
you.
be offensive.
What'd you say, Becca?
So I need to find, there's the clip of, because we've been watching all the, well, we started with Captain America to work all the way up through the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And the scene where Rocket Raccoon asks the Winter Soldier how much for his arm, and he just like gives him this sideways look, like kind of, are you kidding me? And then walks away. Like, you got to perfect that. Watch it 100 times so that you can
Look
perfect
and
it.
walk
Like,
away.
really? And walk
Hello.
away.
Sometimes it's okay just not to answer, just walk away.
Oh,
But
man.
there are some women who are bold enough to just say, that's none of your business.
I know. I wish
I
I was
want
one
to
of
be
those
that
people.
woman.
Me too. I mean, I'm not
Oh,
even
we're going
fast
back to
enough
the
to come up
tattoos
with a
now.
quick remark or
No.
being mean.
It's none of your
No.
business.
I'm gonna have to get a few
Why
of
are you
those.
asking me that?
The tattoos with a little flip thing in the middle so you can
Or it should be,
which one?
Wait. They ask you a question and it's like, you go first.
That would be a much better question, because a lot of times the questions come from people who wouldn't want to answer them either.
Oh, man.
I don't know. It's tough, man. It really is. And I don't even know. I mean, we're talking about all the big stuff, but then there's all the small stuff too. It's the intrusive questions about your relationship. It's intrusive questions about your children. When we adopted our kids, and if one more person asks me what their story is, I'm gonna scream. It's the first time in my entire life that I've been able to be like, that's nothing we talk about.
Oh,
That
good
story's
for you.
ours. Because it isn't my story. So I can say, I feel more empowered to say no. For some reason, I feel like it's important for me to protect them more than it was ever important for me to protect myself, which is not good, because it's equally as important. But oh my God, so many people ask. So many people ask. And even if you give a little bit, they want details of all the gory bad. And I'm like, nope, that's not who we are. That's not what we're going to talk about here today. You could say, congrats on your new family. Thanks so much.
We got one time. My sister and I, my sister who's adopted, and clearly adopted, like we look nothing alike. Like Winter and I don't look anything alike. And a guy said, "Oh, that's your sister?" And he was very well meaning. He had adopted kids. Like he was, he's a good person. But he's like, "Oh, there must be a beautiful story here." And we just kind of smiled and we're like, "Oh, and introducing." And then after he was gone, my sister said, "What if there's not?" Like, like, what if it's not a beautiful story? And in fact, adoption is not a beautiful story. I don't care how many times people tell you, "Oh, but you're chosen," whatever. Like, it's not a beautiful story. Adoption comes from terrible trauma, and you have to deal with that trauma for the rest of your life. Like, it's not a beautiful story. Now, beautiful things can come out of it, just like any terrible story. But if you haven't looked at it that way, like, you just don't look at it that way. We put this spin on it and a lot of things to make it, oh, but it's for the best, or this was whatever. And
Or it's meant
anyway,
to be, or you're saving their lives. Dude, my kids are perfectly alive. They're very well. I ain't saving anything. And if you don't believe that, go ask them. They'll tell you. They're like, nope, I'm fine. But again, it's the, I mean, people mean well. It's a nice thing to say, but it's extremely uncomfortable because you are facing trauma every day, and you went down a very rocky road to get to where you are, and it's nowhere near stable. And people make a really big deal about it, and it's kind of uncomfortable. And it's the same sort of thing women who get pregnant with a pregnancy that stays after multiple miscarriages, and people make such a big deal, and it's good meaning and they're wishing you well, and inside you're panicking constantly. Or, you know, the person who's finally getting married after the terrible divorce, and it's the same thing again. It's, oh, you found, you know, the love of your life, your ever forever after, your person, your partner. And you might be sitting there going, I hope I did.
You know what? This is something I actually really struggle with, and I avoid it because I'm like, well, I wouldn't be okay. But like when someone has lost someone in their lives, and like there's a ton of people who are like, "Are you okay? How are you doing?" And I don't do that because I'm like, I'm assuming you're not okay. But at the same time, I feel like I'm not being supportive. I don't know what else I could possibly say. So then I feel like a jerk because I'm not like in there. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I
My
really
husband
struggle
has
with
a
that.
it takes big issue with you're in my thoughts and prayers.
Mhm.
He has a very big problem with that when people are like, you're in my thoughts and prayers, you're in my thoughts and prayers. Because he's always like, how many people are actually saying their prayers at night, and including that person that they saw on Facebook 10 hours earlier? And I get his point. But you're right. Like, how do you do it correctly? And I think some of that's really just going to depend on the person, because everybody's going to have a different feeling about it, right?
Mhm.
But I don't ask how you're doing either, because I know they're not doing good. A lot of times I ask things like, what can I do for you? What do you need?
Yeah,
Is
I
there
was
anything
thinking
you can
that would
share with me that
be
you need? And if they're
that's
super
always
close friends,
appropriate.
like I have shown up at people's houses before and just started doing their fucking laundry, because I'm like, you know what? You don't need to tell me what you need. I can figure it out. I'm coming over.
Yeah.
And that's really the only other way I've ever known to combat it.
I had a friend whose dog was sick, and everybody, if you know me, you know how I am about pets. Like, pets are life. And and her dog was sick and she had moved. And so the next time I talked to her, I debated the whole phone call if I should ask how the dog was or not. Because, like, what if the dog died and I'm going to make it worse because maybe she just got finished mourning, or maybe she's feeling okay today. And if I ask, it like brings up all the pain. And if the dog's better, she's all good. You know what I mean? But I never asked, and it's been years, but I'm so afraid still to bring up the pain. I don't like bringing up pain, people. So I don't know. Like, it's just a thing for me.
I think pain is part of life too, and sometimes we're scared of it.
I'm afraid of
But sometimes
causing
it
it.
shapes us into who we are. And as much as I hated the questions people asked, especially about kids, it's a big part of my life. It is a big part of who I am now. If I hadn't gone through all that, I wouldn't be the person I am today.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to revisit it a whole bunch either, so I don't know the right answer to that question.
I really hate to do this, but my dog is telling me that he is going to crap all over the floor if I
Just
don't let him
go.
out.
Go!
I don't think he's telling the truth. I think there's a bone out there that he wants to chew on for the next 15 minutes, and he's
See
lying.
how he does.
I
And as
hear
soon
him
as
tapping.
he's gonna start, yeah, his tail is whacking the table. Like, please, 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 please.
Maybe the cat will go
back.
out with him.
You know,
She
you
would
have
love
lots
to.
of animal issues this week.
I apologize. I have other issues too. Oh my goodness.
Becca will be back after this intermission.
Slight animal intermission. Mine are passed out behind me. Otherwise, it would be the same situation. Can I tell you how Chewy ate an entire pork shoulder yesterday?
I apologize. I have
off of your counter when you
Off
weren't
of the
looking.
stove. So he has a
Oh.
hotel that he lives in. When we're out of the house, he goes to his hotel. But he was giving me the sad eyes, and I was like, oh, you could stay out. I'm only going to be gone for a little bit to pick the kids up. No big deal. And I also left dinner on the stove covered in full nice, and I came home to one
Nothing but
very
the
happy
foil.
puppy and nothing for dinner.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that was fun. Not near as exciting as Becca's had issues this week, but an entire pork shoulder gone.
So
What?
you missed it, Becca.
The dog ate it?
We ate dinner last night. Our dinner.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
And he
Which was
looked
my
so
own fault.
happy.
I was telling Winter I didn't put him in his puppy hotel when I went to pick the kids up from school because he was giving me the sad eyes, but I had left dinner out covered in foil, nice on the stove. Interestingly enough, I had black beans in a pot right next to it. It wasn't even covered, and he didn't touch the damn beans.
D has done that. D has taken a whole chicken. And then, he's gotten sneaky though. He sits next to my mom because he knows I won't let him have anything. But he'll sit next to my mom and she'll be eating a sandwich. And if she turns her head, he will grab it.
Oh, Chewy's done that to my mother too. He's taken a turkey sandwich right out of her hand before. I'm like, what is your problem? You know how things work around here. He's like, I didn't know. Like, it's the first sandwich he's eaten from you since he's been alive. Like,
don't do it.
Titus, my cat, the one that's sick now, he used to do that with a trooper, like off his plate. He would just just sit in the chair next to him and then just watch it and then, snatch. Like, stop
mine
it.
have become super food greedy since the kids have been around because they're constantly dropping food. So now they think people food is their food.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, your intermission turned into.
So, sorry. It's just a matter of minutes before he starts barking for me to let him back in. And since it's nighttime, I'm going to have to let him in. So, back to the other, just to wrap up, I think we've pretty much talked about the whole, kids and adoption thing, but people asking why you adopt or why you had 5 kids or something that someone in our life has said to us a lot of times, like, well, I wish that I had 5 kids. Which is just another way of saying, why don't you have more kids?
Yeah.
And
or when you have a
are you doing
handful
this
of
again?
children and you're pregnant again and they're like, oh, was this the baby? And people are like, no.
No, our goal is 10.
Right.
Or I think you should have another one.
Yeah. You've got 2 girls. Don't you want a boy? No. Good there too. My dad heard that a lot when we were younger because he just had me and my sister. And so it was all girls and my dad. And he would hear all the time, don't you want a boy? Shouldn't you want a boy? Don't you want a boy? He'd always be like, nope, I'm good. Nope. And I remember as a little girl growing up and my father saying, nope, he didn't want a boy. I wonder if it would have changed my outlook on life if he was like, yeah, I really wish one was a son.
It probably would. You'd have had
right? A whole other slew of issues that I don't even have.
Very different inferiority complex from
Well,
just
to
being
this-
female in the first place. Oh, man.
Well, to this day, every time I come home, my mom is still like, so have you met anybody? On the phone, have you met anybody? Yeah, I met a couple of new friends. And are any of them male? No. Oh. So you didn't want me to meet new people. You just wanted me to meet
a man.
A male. I'm not going to just date any male. And then it's, well, I'm getting up there in age. You're going to need to get married before I die. I don't want to die and you're an old maid.
Why?
I'm like,
whoa,
I think I can take care of myself.
What do you do with that?
You want me to send her a letter for you?
It would be awesome.
Hi, I'm Becca. You don't know me, but
she is really serious. She is very fearful that I'm going to end up an old maid.
Maybe you should go back to wearing the rainbow bracelet.
True.
It's gone. I don't even know. It's been years.
I'll make you one.
You need a new one. Hey, listen, I'll totally rent my husband out if you need him for like a picture to claim him as yours. I'll even send him out there to do like side work and whatever. I could use a vacation anytime. You just let me know.
We're going to Costa
He can come.
Rica.
He's pretty good at like, winning over moms. You can take him to dinner once, be like, yeah, this is my new beau. Just fly him home so we could take the kids to school in the morning. I'm good.
I was gonna say, but then it's just going to be you and the kids all night.
Just make sure he's home by morning.
Okay.
Fine. There's plenty of red-eye flights. I kid. I love my husband.
I know it.
Yeah. I don't, moms are a totally different beast, man. My mother says the most awful things in the world to me sometimes. And I'm like, really? Really? And then she says things that are she just keeps repeating it like I didn't hear it. we were just together over the weekend. She must have told me 17 times never to buy hair dye that has black in again. Don't buy black. Don't buy black. Don't put brown black. Don't put black in your hair again. Don't dye your hair black again. Don't put. I was like, how many more times are you going to say that this weekend? Because she doesn't like the color of my hair. But she's your mom. She's my mom. Like, what do I say? I was just like, could you stop repeating yourself? You sound like Abigail.
Yeah.
But I don't know. My mom does the same thing to my sister all the time too, because she's not dating anybody. Well, she just started dating someone else. But then everybody she brings home, my parents are so judgmental of anyway. I'm like, why would she even want to tell you if she's dating someone? You're so mean to everyone. It's awful.
But here's the thing, my mom wants me to bring someone home, and then the one time I did bring someone to meet the family, she was like, you got to be careful of her. She's bossy. I was like,
you're not helping, Ma.
You are not. What? I'm like, you are really contradicting yourself right now. I'm going to need you to just
boy.
I feel like we could have a whole other night and just talk about things that our mothers told us.
We have to publish it somewhere. Although my mom doesn't do that a lot. I mean, she has commented on my weight, I think. But not
my parents went as far as to buy me
excessively.
clothes that were 2 sizes smaller when I was a teenager because I was going to lose weight and I would fit into them someday soon. I wonder why I have all the issues I
would
have.
wear the same size as my mom, and she would be like, you need to lose weight.
Moms, man.
And I would be like, you can't say it back. It's rude. If you
No.
say it back to your
No.
mom.
You would get in so much trouble.
So have you had any situations where you were the one who said or asked something and then you were like, oh my goodness, shoot. I can't believe I did that?
I'm sure there are. I probably blocked them out of my memory.
I definitely have. For me, it's more like I'm the person that'll make the statement or the comment that I shouldn't, not so much asking the question. I'll do stupid stuff. Like people will be sick and I'll be like, yeah, but when you're all better. Or before I dealt with infertility and I had a friend who had a miscarriage and I'm like, but next time. And now I realized how bad that was after you deal with it. Like when I'm now, that was me. And I'm like, the last thing I want to hear is about next time I get pregnant, right? Because like, who wants to hear that? But I didn't know at the time because I didn't know. And I almost wish she had told me then how offensive something like that could be so that I would be more conscious of it. But then when I look back and realize when I was in that situation and people would say that to me, I never opened my mouth and told them either.
Was it because it was too hurtful or because you didn't want to offend them?
I don't know. It's a good question. Maybe a little of both, but a lot of people do that. And I know I've done the same thing with friends who were divorced. And I had a friend who was like, listen, dude, like, and that's why I think I'm so sensitive of it. Cause she was like, come on, I literally just got divorced. Like I appreciate it, but I'm not there yet, you know? She had put on a pretty strong face through the whole thing. And I kind of just figured, oh, she's over it. We're moving on. Let's go take a girls trip. Let's go find a man. Let's do something. And she was finally like, dude, I'm not ready. And I respected her. I appreciated her saying that to me because I would not have known otherwise. So I think for me, I've screwed it up enough times that people have actually opened their mouth and told me. And so I know to be more conscious going forward, but I'll still mess stuff up.
Well, and then not being the person who decides when someone's had enough time of healing for anything. Because there's so many forms of healing. And some people just don't want to go back through it again. And then some people are like, it will take 2 months. Because some people have lost their loved one and gotten married 2 months later. Mm-hmm. And then there are some people who will wait 6 years to get married again. You know what I mean? Like, you can't decide for someone or encourage someone to move faster than their heart or mind will allow them to. It's different for everyone.
No, and it's sad that there's so much pressure for people to move on. I have someone I know who lost her husband 5 years ago, and maybe 2 months ago, 3 months ago, she was standing in my kitchen crying over him like it was yesterday and apologizing profusely and telling me how ridiculous she was to still be so upset after so long. And I'm like, here's another box of tissues. You cry as long as you need to, you know what I mean? But it's because those, I mean, probably people around her have made her feel like it's been long enough. It's time to
Yeah.
move
Or
on, and that's unfair.
or she's around people where she was never fully allowed to mourn properly too.
It's possible.
And that prolongs it sometimes too. But whether she has been mourning this whole time freely, she has the right to do so. You feel what you feel. And no one can tell you that that's wrong.
I'll tell you another one I've done. And I've done it a few times, even after knowing how insensitive it is. When people lose someone who's older or someone who's been sick for a long time, especially the older people, and I'm like, well, they lived a really long life, you know, and were they happy to, and like start asking questions like that. Like, just because they lived a long life doesn't make you miss them any less. Or just because someone's no longer sick and maybe at peace, that doesn't mean that it makes you feel any better. And I have a tendency to do that sometimes by accident.
Yeah, I've thought about that somewhat recently, I guess. Just that getting into that whole idea of it doesn't matter. It doesn't, yeah, it doesn't. Even if the person that you're talking to that lost a loved one is saying those things to make, like, because that's what they've been
told it's
told to
expected of them.
say, basically,
Right.
right? Like, yeah, like that's what you get. So you just start reciting these things. But I'm getting now to the point where I'm just, whenever someone expresses any kind of grief, I say, well, you know, I'm really sorry and don't feel bad about feeling bad. And I'll say, you know, yeah, I know that there are positive things, but that doesn't make this disappointment or this grief any less real. So, because it can be a really unhealthy coping mechanism to blow off, oh, you know, well, yes, I miss my grandmother, you know, whoever it is. Or it doesn't have to be a death. It could be failing something. It could be losing a job. It could be like any major loss or disappointment. To try to make someone feel better, I've decided is just not the way to go. Like to be like, oh, but something is waiting for you, or it's God's timing, or, you know, the cliche things that people say, and they mean well. And I'm sure that I've done it so many times. I know that I have, but now I'm like, no, just grieve with that person. Like, that's so disappointing. I'm sorry. And you can even acknowledge, yeah, I know it'll work out in the end. You know, it'll work out, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't grieve it now. And that doesn't make it any less terrible. Just, you know, I had a cat that got run over, and this lady told me, oh, what happened? And I said, well, it was laying behind the car, and no one saw it, and it got backed over. And she was like, and she laughed, and she said, oh, well, that was stupid. And I haven't really had a conversation with that person. I mean, not that I'm anywhere near that person now anyway, but like, I just couldn't believe it. I was just like, this happened days ago, not 10 years ago, you know? But it's things like that. Like, people just aren't thinking.
Well, I think there's this element of social awkwardness that sometimes comes into play, and people don't know what to say, and so they default to probably the dumbest thing that could come out of their mouth sometimes. At least I know that happens for me. But to laugh, that's never acceptable.
No, but even if she hadn't, like, just, I don't know, it was just bad.
The lack of care.
Yeah, and some people are not they're just not very caring, you know. But I found that I don't invest time. I know that they probably need it, but I can't. I can't put myself through that anymore. Yeah, I once told a girl who she had like a red mark over her eye. I thought she had like bruised her face. And she was a little girl. I was an adult. And I was like, oh, your eye. And I said, it was like, my brother once had a sore on his eye and he would tell people who stared at him, he would say, oh, you should see the other guy. And she's just staring at me. And I thought, she doesn't understand what I'm saying. I saw her the next year. It was still there because it was a birthmark, not a bruise.
Oh.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Anyway, so like I just felt terrible. I was like, oh, that poor girl's probably gotten so much crap for that. And here I am, like a complete stranger making a joke about it. Not a mean joke, but just like a
Trying to make her feel better joke that she didn't need
right.
to feel better about.
No, she didn't. I'm like, man.
There's
So anyway,
an
that stuck with
author
me, like
on
things not to
TikTok
say.
there's an author on TikTok that I follow as a birthmark on her face. And I've been following her for a while. I haven't read any of her stuff yet, but I'm obsessed with her covers, so I probably will because I absolutely judge a book by its cover. But anyway, she did an entire TikTok video just to tell her following that she's not going to have her birthmark removed, that she's had it there since she was born and that it's part of her. And for me, I'm like watching
Good
this
for
and
her.
I'm thinking,
like, how many people have asked you?
how many people have said something to you? And it's definitely a birthmark. You can tell it's not like, this situation where it may have looked like a bruise, but how many people have had the audacity to make a comment on her book posts about her birthmark on her face that motivated her to actually sit there and do a video that says, this is what my face looks like and it's always going to look this way. I was like, damn girl, for having the courage to do it, because I probably would just be, hiding away in the corner at every stupid comment that somebody would make. But a lot behind this computer screen now, which is a whole other topic for another day.
We might actually need to talk about that eventually.
Go ahead and add that to the list.
We are totally getting close to the end. We have about 3 more minutes, but I vote to have another topic eventually about when you should speak up, because today was about things that people shouldn't say. But like when someone or maybe even someone you don't know is wearing something maybe they really shouldn't wear, do you speak up or do you not? There are sometimes we should talk about when is a good time to speak up. That'd be an interesting topic.
Yeah, it would be. For the record, if it's me, just say something.
Okay.
If it's me, probably don't.
Because I'll probably be like,
if I'm already
don't really
wearing it
care
and
what
I've
you
left
think.
the house, it's too late for me to do something about it, and I'm just going to freak out the entire time. So you could tell me much later on, hey,
just write you a note and put it
in
in your pocket for when you get home so you know to not wear it but next time.
Probably a good idea. A little more insight into the crazy I call my mind. But you're right, it's 9:03, so we should probably wrap this up. I know we started a little late, but we were closer to on time than normal.
8:05.
8:05. So
Becca
that gives us
is
2
our
minutes.
guest speaker next week or the week after.
If you told her next week, let's do it next week. There's no reason not to.
We're actually good with either.
Sorry.
Which is the official day?
Well, the official day is the 3rd, but it's only the 3rd weekend or the 3rd week.
Okay, I'll tell
But
her.
that's only because we just randomly decided, hey, let's make it the 3rd week. So there's no reason.
Sorry. My neighbor either just let off a cannon or went after a coyote because it got very loud and now the dogs are losing their mind. Joys of living in the country. So if you told her the 11th, let's go with the 11th. So she's good with next Tuesday, Winter?
Okay, yeah. So we have a guest speaker next Tuesday named Sydney, and she's going to talk about having multiple streams of income as well as starting a medical school for phlebotomists and other type of such things.
Very cool.
Sounds
like a good one. Multiple streams of income. We could all use those. So join us next week, Tuesday at 8:00 Eastern Standard Time. I'll put an invite out there on Facebook here in a little bit. 8-ish. Yeah. I know. I'm going to start putting that in the comments. We'll be there around 8:00. If you're busy, show up. if you're not busy, show up.
And then
getting
in the
better, though.
comments, in the comments, write whether it's a good idea to tell someone they have a boogie or not.
It is.
That is one
Times
you
to
would
speak
say.
up.
I would want to know. That would be a good time to speak up. Or stuff in my teeth. There's always stuff in my teeth. Okay. We're going to go.
We'll talk about that later.
All right, ladies.
Bye,
Have a good
guys.
night.
Good
Have a good night.
night.
See you next
time.
week.